Welcome to part 2 of week 13, Journey into the Redwoods. My next favorite animal is a northern spotted owl. Northern spotted owls are a medium-sized owl with a 4-foot wingspan. From one end to the other, they're about as tall as you are. They have a beautiful brown color with white spots. When they have their babies, they often will take a used nest from a hawk or a squirrel to lay their eggs. Their favorite food is moles, rats, and small animals like salamanders, insects, and frogs. Owls are nocturnal, meaning they're most active at nighttime. So today I'm going to teach you how to draw a northern spotted owl at night. And we're going to be using some techniques to show texture on the owl and also a really cool way to make a night sky using watercolor paint and crayon. So once again, boys and girls, I like to practice drawing on my whiteboard first before I go to paper. So I have my supplies ready. I have my whiteboard marker, and my whiteboard eraser standing by. And I also have my drawing of the northern spotted owl right next to me to help me remember the steps. So just like in most of my drawings, we're going to break it down into simple shapes and lines. We're going to go step by step. That means you watch me first and you copy along. And everybody can do this project. Everybody can make a northern spotted owl. So let's get started. What I'm noticing first is the head is basically like a large oval, like a kind of a fat oval. I'm noticing circle eyes. I'm noticing a triangle beak. I'm noticing sort of a U-shaped body, kind of like when we drew our sea otters. Some simple lines. And I'm also noticing some texture, just like when we made our fox. I'm noticing the bumpy lines on the outside of the owl to give the illusion of texture, because owls have many, many feathers. Their lines are not straight, and even some curvy lines inside, some spots, and a crescent moon. And then later, I'm going to show you how you can use crayons and watercolor paint to make a beautiful night sky. But let's start by just practicing the owl, shall we? Awesome. So notice I'm going to start with an oval for the owl's head, kind of at the top of my whiteboard, so that I have room for the body and room for the tail. So sometimes before you draw, you kind of have to imagine where things are going to go on your whiteboard or your paper before you draw to make sure you have enough space. So I'm not going to do the fuzzy lines right now, just like with the fox. I'm just going to concentrate on practicing the shapes and drawing the owl first, okay? Just going to practice those shapes. And also the owl is symmetrical. Remember what symmetry means? It's kind of like if we made a line right down the drawing, the left side is almost the same as the right side. That's called symmetry. So whatever we do on one side, we're going to basically copy on the other side, okay? Alrighty, so we have our owl. We're going to make the body of the owl, just like with our sea otter. We're going to start from one side of the head, go down in a short U, a short thick U, back to the other side of the head. So just watch me and then follow along, just like that. Okay, that's the basic head, and that's the basic body of an owl. Let's do the tail. The tail is kind of like an upside down triangle, isn't it? Yes, it is. And it starts on one side of the body, down, and back up to the other side of the body. So watch me. I'm not going to worry about the feathers quite yet. We're just going to get the basic shapes. Head, the body, and the tail. Now we're going to add some details. Let's start with the eyes. 2 circle eyes pretty much right in the middle of the owl. If it helps you, just like before when we were drawing our portraits or when we were drawing our fox, if it helps you to find the center line, go ahead and draw it. Don't be scared. On a whiteboard, we'll just erase it later. This way I can know where to put my eyes better, because look, the eyes are kind of like, if I drew a line right here, the eyes are on the left and right side. So I'm just going to be brave, and I'm just going to start with a circle here, and about that much space over here, we're going to add another circle. So it's kind of the same on this side as it is on this side. You see that? They're kind of in the same space. If you need to erase and try that again, please do. The beak is right on the line of symmetry. It's right down the middle, and then it's an upside down triangle, boys and girls. And look, it's basically starts right at the bottom between the eyes. So I'm going to start with the bottom of the top of the triangle, I should say, and then make the shape of a triangle. Okay? So now that I have basically the eyes and the beak in the correct place, if you want, you can simply erase that line of symmetry with your finger. If it bothers you, you can leave it too. It doesn't really matter. This is a whiteboard, right? This isn't our final art piece. And I'm going to leave some white in the eyes. The great northern owl actually has dark eyes. It has dark brown, almost black eyes. Unlike most owls who have yellowish, goldish, orangish eyes, the northern spotted owl has really dark eyes. And let's go ahead and add some other shapes really quick. We're going to add the wings on the side. He's holding his little wings in, not flying. He's sitting, right? Maybe looking for some dinner. I'm going to take a line down and tuck it in right about where the tail meets the body. So watch me, okay? A line down gets a little bit big, and then tuck it back in. Try that same motion on the other side. You're making the wings. Okay? So far, so good? Yay! All right, before I draw any feathers or anything else, let's go ahead and draw that branch, because I'm going to be needing to erase some of these lines. So I'll show you what I mean. So my owl is sitting on a branch, and it's kind of hard to explain, but look, it stops, and his little feathers are over the branch, and then it extends off to the side. And however you want to make your branch, it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to bring it back over this way. But now look, this looks weird because the tail's behind the branch, right? The tail's behind the branch. So I want to erase those lines. If you happen to be drawing on paper, hopefully you're drawing light so you can erase those lines. Because the tail is behind the branch, which means the branch is in front. So we want to get rid of those lines. And the toes are kind of like upside down triangles too. And you can do 3 toes on each foot or 2 toes. It doesn't really matter. You can kind of practice and see what you like. Erase the lines as needed. That looks pretty good because the toes are over the body. So we want to put the body behind. All right, this is kind of a basic outline. Now we can add the details, right? You know what I'm going to do first. Just like with my fox, my owl has texture. It has feathers. It doesn't have straight lines. It has sort of bumpy, zigzaggy lines. Notice how I'm not even going slow. I'm really just kind of zigzag lines on the whole outline of the owl to make it look soft. I mean, could you imagine touching an owl? It's got to be so soft. Its feathers are so soft and fluffy. And I'm going to do the same thing down here on the tail. So now he looks like a fluffy little chick, doesn't he? And then if you look at photographs of a northern spotted owl, they have this beautiful feather pattern around their eyes. It looks like they're wearing a mask. So I'm just going to kind of do some fuzzy, like a mask around this face. And I'm going to add this texture of this chest, kind of like on the fox. It's kind of like an upside down triangle. And in the chest on a northern gray spotted owl, it has these beautiful feathers. And then on the tummy and on the wings is where we see the spots. So you add as many spots as you want on this northern spotted owl, because just like in nature, some owls will have more spots than others. And it doesn't have too many spots up here on top, but when we color, it does have a beautiful kind of black feather pattern right here in its head. And then for the tail, it has beautiful feather patterns. Not really very many spots on the tail. And then if you want to practice drawing some leaves before we go to paper, you can. And if you want to practice a crescent moon is the easiest way I can explain it. Make the letter C and then connect this end to this end like this with a short curve like that. All right, let's get our paper and our other supplies ready. We're going to draw this on a piece of paper. All right, just like in the video before, I'm going to outline my owl before I add texture with my crayons. If you have a Sharpie and you would like to outline it with a Sharpie and you have practice with a Sharpie, you can do that. But for today, I am going to use my black crayon to outline my owl. And just like with the fox, instead of following these straight lines, I am going to be adding texture to the lines as I outline my owl. Okay, so just watch me. Remember, if you need to pause or rewind this video at any time, please do so. Okay, for the next step, let me tell you what kind of supplies you can have. If you have watercolor paints, you can use your watercolor paints for this next step because it's so much fun. Watercolor Resist is what happens when we mix crayons and watercolors, and I'm going to show you the magic of that. So if you want to use watercolor paints now, get your watercolor paints, a clean jar or cup of water, brush, paintbrush, and always a paper towel. Why a paper towel? Because sometimes our brush is too wet or it has too much paint and we need to go like this on our paper towel to take off some of the water. My other supplies I have before I even start my watercolor paint, I still need to add some details with my owl before I go. And so I'm going to be using some crayons. I'm going to be using a green crayon for the leaves on the branch. I'm going to be using a brown crayon. Where'd my brown crayon go? Here it goes. For the tree branch. And I'm going to be using yellow crayon for the moon and for the beak and a little bit of shine in the eyes. And you know what? I forgot to use my black crayon to color dark eyes. Dark eyes in my owl. So I'm going to do that really quick. Sometimes even art teachers forget the steps. And don't worry about the brown. We're actually going to be adding brown watercolor paint to our owl to make it brown. But let's have a little bit of fun first. Let's just go ahead and color our branch in brown. And after we color our branch in brown, we can add, if you made leaves on your branch, maybe your branch doesn't have any leaves. Mine has just a few leaves, so I'm going to color those in green. Now, I could use watercolor paint to do these steps, but I'm going to show you something really cool about watercolor paint. So the only colors of watercolor paint I'm going to be using today is black and brown. What? Yes, you're going to see some really cool magic that happens. And maybe right now you're even asking yourself, but Miss Friels, when I paint my owl brown, what happens to all the white spots? Well, this is where the magic comes in. And many of you from my art class before know how this works, but I have a white crayon. And you might be saying, wait, white crayon on white paper? I don't get it. What's going to happen? Oops, I forgot his little tiny beak. Got his little tiny beak and that little shine in the eyes. The moon is shining in his eyes. When I make white crayon before the paint, when I add the paint later, the paint will push, the crayon will push the paint away and you will be able to see the crayon. What am I talking about? Well, first, let me add some white to my owl and let me add some white stars in the sky, and then I will show you the magic of what I'm talking about. Now, when I look at a northern spotted owl photograph, they have some white in between their eyes and a little bit of white on their chin. So with my crayon, I'm going to add some lines, and I'm kind of pushing hard. You can't see me doing it, but I'm adding some white around the eyes, just like I said, and a little bit under the eyes, and a little bit around the chin, like a little beard, like a little white beard. I'm adding white and I'm pushing pretty hard. I already pushed so hard I broke my crayon. It's Doesn't that happen sometimes? Man, crayons are easy to break, right? And I'm adding a little bit of white on the chest of the owl. And I'm going to color my spots white. So I'm going to be pushing white crayon into the spots. And sometimes it looks a little bit gray right now because it's picking up a little bit of the black crayon, which is fine. If you use Sharpie, this wouldn't happen, but I use crayon, so it's mixing a little bit, but that's fine. And I'm also going to add a little bit of white on the tips of the wings and maybe just a little bit on the tip of the tail for fun. Okay, now I'm going to add stars. I'm going to add stars. If you know how to draw stars, draw stars. If you don't know how to draw stars, guess what I do? I do an X, just like an X, and then a line down through it like this. Like, I should show you what I'm doing with my white. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm doing an X with my white, and then one line down the middle, and then one line down the middle again. Kind of like when we did our spider web. I'll show you that one more time. A plus, and then a line diagonal through the middle, and a line diagonal through the middle. That's exactly how we did our spider webs. I'm doing this pattern with my white crayon to make my stars, okay? You can't see it, that's why I had to show you what I was doing. So I do an X and lines through it, and do as many stars as you want. You know, if you go out sometimes on a beautiful night sky, you can see so many stars in the sky. So add as many as you want in your sky. I'm going a little bit crazy because I really want you to see what happens when I add watercolor paint over crayon. It's so cool. The crayon pushes that watercolor paint right away. It pushes it right off of it. So you'll be able to see this white in just a minute. But I'm not done with my stars. I'm going to do a few more stars. Miss Friels is making a crazy starry sky. And I can kind of see my stars, but honestly, I don't really know how many I did. I think that's probably enough for now, right? All right, let's start with the brown paint on our owl, and then we'll do the black paint in the sky. So watercolors, always be really soft with your brush. Respect the materials. If you take good care of them, they will take good care of you. So this is brown. It's hard to see, but this is brown. This is black. This is brown. So I got my watercolor paintbrush wet. I'm going to rub it in the brown very softly, and I'm just going to test. I'm going to do a little test on the owl. It's pretty light. I kind of want a little bit more paint, so I'm going to just grab a little bit more paint from the palette. And I am not going to go around my spots. I am just going to cover my whole owl, even over the feet and everything, down through the tail, even up over the face with brown. Watch. And the white parts will push the brown paint away. So I'm not worried about it. Remember how I did white around the eyes and white on the chin? Look, it won't even hold on to that brown paint. It pushed it right away. Isn't that cool? I'm going right over it and it's pushing it away. This is called Watercolor Resist. Now it's getting light again, a little bit more water, a little bit more brown paint. And once again, I'm gonna go right over my whole owl. I'm going right over the spots, and where I put white on my owl, where I have crayon, even the feet, even the yellow feet are pushing that brown paint away. So I don't have to worry about going around all those lines. That would be like, take me so long. Look at that. I painted right over the spots, and the white crayon just pushed that brown paint right away. I didn't even need to go around the spots, and I put a little bit of white on the end of the tail. So I'm just gonna paint, and I'm painting right over the branch and right over the feet, and the crayon just literally pushing that paint away. So there's my cute little owl. Now he's gonna take a little while to dry. In the meantime, rinse, rinse, rinse. I wanna pick up some black, and we're gonna do a night sky. When I paint the night sky, I'm going to make horizontal lines with my paintbrush back and forth like this. I'm not gonna be crazy. I'm not gonna push my paintbrush hard. I'm going to make nice strokes like this. I can go right over the moon. I am gonna go around the owl just a little bit, but I can go right over the branch. I can go down here and back up here using some left to right horizontal movements with my watercolor brush. So I'll show you, okay? First of all, let's get a nice black. So water and black paint, and I'm just gonna test it. Okay, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So let me just start. Oh, maybe a little bit darker. So I'm gonna grab a little bit more black. Left to right, look what is happening here. Those beautiful stars are pushing that black paint away, and they're just appearing like magic. Isn't that cool? So once again, I don't worry about going over the moon. It has crayon on it. The crayon will just push the black paint away. Look at that. Wow, isn't that wonderful? And I'm gonna do the same over here. I'm pulling the black paint. Sometimes I need to dip a little bit more black paint when it gets light. I'm going around my owl, but I'm going right over my crayons. Look at that. Those stars in the sky are coming right out. Isn't that amazing? I think it's so cool. And I'm just gonna keep going until I finish. Now I'm painting on regular paper. When you paint on regular paper, sometimes the paper gets kind of like really soft and wet. So you really want to make sure you leave your paper to dry, okay, before you pick it up too much. Usually when we use watercolors, we should be using a watercolor paper. And watercolor paper is special because it's thick and it holds the paint a little bit better, and it will not like get wrinkled. But most of us don't have watercolor paper, right? We just have regular paper. So we use what we got. We use what we got. And then later in life, when we have watercolor paper, we can try this technique again. But right now, we're just having fun. We're learning. We're trying new things. We're being brave and figuring out some really cool and creative ways to make art. Look at that. Isn't that cool? All of the white crayons pushed away the paint. All of the other kinds of colors of crayons pushed away the paint, so I could go right over the top. That is called Watercolor Resist. It is so cool. It happens with crayons and watercolors, or with pastels and watercolors. But I don't have any pastels for everybody. So that is good for now. I'm gonna let this owl sit overnight. It's hunting at night anyways, and I'm going to let it dry. Right. I had so much fun making a gray fox and a northern spotted owl. I cannot wait to see your art. See you next time.